Chapter 14 Learning a Trade, Again 2. Author. Legion 20. Chapter Content. How did you do it? Celia asked, still recovering from the surprise. Magic. I am blessed by the light. Didn't you hear the news? Celia started rummaging her brain, until the answer made sense. Oh, I get it now. You were the magic kid that's on everybody's mouth in Lucia. That explains a lot, including your shitty attitude. Excuse me, you found a scrawny kid on your door, asking for help. And what you did was send him away with a rip-off deal, even laughing at his efforts. And I am the one with a shitty attitude. Lith was now so angry that even the idea of sharing his prey did not seem so bad anymore. Celia laughed out loud. Kid, you really are funny in the head. First, when you come at the door of a stranger asking for help, the best you can hope for is to be sent away with a polite kick in the butt. If I had to comply with every madman's request, I would be broke in a jiffy. Second, you had the guts to slam the door at me and then come back like nothing happened. That's a shitty attitude. Listening to her point of view, Lith could only agree. For 4 years he had been a recluse, his only interactions with the family members. He had got too used getting a yes as an answer, forgetting the basic social interaction rules and even common sense. His hunger didn't help either, making him single-minded and prone to anger. Lith realized that Celia was right, and what he did that morning was just a temper tantrum. I'm really sorry, he said earnestly, looking her in the eyes. I have no excuses from my behavior. I would understand if you wanted to call off our deal. Celia started laughing even harder. Hold your horses, kid. I said that you are crazy and rude, and I like that. As you so kindly pointed out, I'm a bit of jerk myself. And dog does not eat dog, our deal is still valid. She handed him a small knife with a wooden handle. Rule number 1, bleed out the game as soon as possible. If the blood starts clotting, the meat is ruined. Make a deep incision in the neck and then hang them upside down, to make the blood drain out. She pointed him to a clothesline. When you don't need the fur, I always cut off the head directly, makes things faster. Lith put down the knife and conjured water, making it coat his whole hand. Then he froze it, turning it into a razor-sharp blade, cutting off the bird's head, using the knife only for the squirrels. Celia whistled with approval. Nice trick. You don't shy away from blood, don't you? As I have told you before, I am hungry. Too hungry to care about big round eyes or a warm fur, I only see them as food. Celia gave him thumbs up. That's the right attitude for a hunter. Then she took the animals and hanged them, thinking the clothesline was too high for Lith to reach. Lith did not feel the need to correct her. Since we are building a master-apprentice relationship and all that CRP, mind you telling why come to me instead of your father or mother? I don't know your family, but this is something that any farmer knows how to do. It would be too expensive having someone else butcher your livestock. Indeed, Lith concurred, pondering how to answer. He looked her straight in the eyes before asking. Just between us, master-apprentice secret and all that CRP. Celia nodded, surprised receiving an actual answer instead of a cranky remark. As far as I can remember, me and my brothers never had a good relationship. Things are pretty bad, especially with my older brother. Lith decided that he needed to take that load off his chest. Talking to a stranger was the best way to relieve his stress and ruin Orpal's reputation. Truth was indeed the best policy. I do not know if it's because of my magic, but I always ate a lot. That would not be a big deal if I hadn't 4 siblings, one of which has a congenital condition. Her treatments cost quite a lot, and that is barely necessary to keep her house ridden. Thank the gods I'm an only child. But what does that have to do with your older brother? Lith pretended to not have heard her. This means that despite my parents' hard work, we don't have much food on the table. Lith pointed at his thin arm, to make her feel guilt. And my brother is a growing boy too, so he would like to have much more chow than he actually has. From time to time, especially during winter, he had fits of rage, where he would accuse me of everything that goes wrong in his life. He often said things like, "Why the heck did you have so many children if you cannot properly feed them? Why does he have to get almost as much as food as me? He does nothing, while I work my ass in the fields all year around. This is not my brother, this is a leech that is sucking my life away. I wish you died that cursed day." Lith did his best Orpal impression. Are you making this up to make me feel guilty, kid? Because that's sick. Celia was knitting her eyebrows, doubting someone could say such things to his little brother. Lith shook his head, sighing. I wish. Did your father give him a good beating? Maybe that could help him come to his senses. Lith shook his head again. No. This started when I was still very little, and even when my father resorted to spanking, it only made things worse. To the point that I now sleep in the girl's room. Celia bit her lips, to avoid making a sex joke. Too soon. Too soon for what? Nothing. Please continue. That was until a year ago. Then I started practicing magic, and soon I was skilled enough to do almost all house chores by myself. Sometimes I help with the livestock too. I even managed to keep my sister's condition under control. Lith took a deep breath before finding the strength to add, most of the times. Then everything should be good now, right? Wrong. The house needs repairs, and so does the barn and most of the working tools. If you also take in consideration all the random sh*t that happens and takes priority, I don't see our situation getting any better soon, and neither does my brother. Now he can't put the blame on me anymore, so the last time he took it out on my ill sister. Saying things that I refuse to repeat out loud, Lith spat on the ground to get rid of the dirty taste the memory gave him. To the point of saying that it would be better for her too. Lith pointed at the hanged game. To put her down like an animal. Kid, we may be jerks, but your brother is a lunatic. Lith gritted his teeth, remembering Orpal's exact words. It would be much better for her, for all of us. She can't run, she can't work. Tista will never be able to make friends, fall in love or have children of her own. She is bound to be a burden for the family. And what will happen when you guys are no more? Who will take care of her? Eliza. Or maybe the little leech wonder. Lith could still vividly recall his mother crying from those cruel words. Eliza and Tista running into her arms. Roz beating Orpal so hard he could not walk for days. Indeed, he replied to Celia with a growl. And that's why I despise him and don't want him to touch a single bite of my game. I get it, I don't even know him and already hate that guy's guts too. No, I don't hate him. Lith corrected her. Hate, just like love, is an irrational feeling, while my contempt for him has sound foundations. Wow, such profound notion for someone so young. Worthy of a hunter. Now enough chit-chat, it's time to get to work. Celia took down the squirrels, passing one to Lith. We will start with the little critters. They are smaller and better for practice, since even if you mess up is no big deal, there is not much meat in here. She placed a squirrel on a cutting board, and prepared another for Lith. What I am going to teach you stands for most rodents, but just in case, if you ever find a rabbit that still has a snow-white fur, bring it to me. It is valuable only until it starts turning brown for the spring. Even a tiny mistake can ruin the fur, lowering its value. Celia handed him the short knife again. If you want me to teach you properly, let's do things my way. Use the knife, do as I do and follow my instructions. Lith nodded in approval. On the squirrel's back, pinch its hide and cut it near the base of the neck so to expose at least half of it. Now use your index finger and middle finger on both hands to create an opening after you have made the cut. Use your fingers to hook up under the skin and pull one hand towards the rear and the other hand towards its head. During the process, Lith noticed that beside being disgusting, skinning a squirrel was like taking off a sticky wet glove. After that, Celia showed him how to remove the head, the legs and the tail. I know is a bummer, but that bushy tail is no fur, as all goddamn body hair. You can still use it to stuff things, is very warm and soft. Now comes the tricky part. When we proceed to gut anything, be careful while making incisions. If you cut open the bladder or the intestines, the meat is ruined by bile or feces. There is no saving it. This stands for all the animals, so pay attention, kid. Gutting the squirrel was bloody and gruesome, but Lith could already smell the meat at the end of the tunnel, so he barely felt any discomfort. When they finished, Celia put both squirrels on a skewer, to roast them in her fireplace. While we wait for our morning snack, I'll show you how to scald a bird for the plucking. As the name implies, water must not be too hot or cold, just enough for you to immerse a finger without getting a burn. but unable to hold the finger in for more than a second without burning yourself. That's proper scalding temperature. Celia took a big cauldron, positioning it over a campfire she had always ready on the back of her house. It can be a messy job, so it's better to do it outside whenever as possible. The smell of the meat cooking inside was making Lith's mouth watery. He could not afford the risk of them burning. Joran. At his command the cauldron became immediately filled with water. Lith then stuck his hand in the water casting, infero, making it emit steam. Celia whistled again with approval. Fast and efficient. I'm starting to regret this master-apprentice stuff less and less. I now understand why that old hag of Nerea called dibs on you. We should be ready to go, but first. Celia went inside briefly, returning with 2 little plates of roasted squirrel. Before she could even pass him his plate, Lith had already snatched the food, wolfing it down like there was no tomorrow. He sucked and gnawed until only bones were left. After licking every single of his fingers, he returned to his previous calm and composed demeanor. Good gods, such a gentleman. Celia's voice was oozing sarcasm. Would you like another serving? Because that seriously creeped me out and I know a thing or two about. Her mockery fell on deaf ears. Lith's eyes could only see the second squirrel closing in. As soon as Celia pretended to offer him her share, his hands were already moving. After devouring the last squirrel, Lith noticed that Celia was frozen in place. Her mouth was open but no words were coming out of it, the plate still near his face. He gently put the bones back into the plate. There was no need to hold the plate for me, but thanks. That was very kind of you. Chapter 15 Changes. Chapter Content. After resolving the morning snack incident, Celia prepared the working table for the remaining game. The birds you caught are called blinkers, because they get scared easily and are very quick to fly away. Usually you need luck and skill to take them down from a distance. Whatever magic you performed, it made a clean kill. Aside from the broken neck, both the feathers and the body are unscathed. Lith accepted the compliment with a small bowing. It's just a matter of finesse in using air magic, nothing special. Celia's curiosity was far from being satisfied, but she decided not to pry further. Scalding is easy and quick. You only need to throw the poultry in the cauldron for about 45 seconds. It's better to gently stir the water in the process, to clean the birds from dirt and external parasites. It also helps loosening most of the feathers. Never scald too long, or the meat could start to boil. Not to mention the risk of rupturing the organs, ruining the meat. Lith took charge of the scalding process, waving his right hand to take control of the water in the cauldron, stirring it and adjusting the force of the current according to Celia's directions. Damn it, kid, you are really starting to make me regret to have never given a damn about magic or learning it. You don't know how to use magic. Lith was astonished. No, and before today I was proud of it. I consider chore magic a simple parlor trick. Why waste my time learning how to do things with it when I get faster and better results by using my hands? Celia shrugged. Now get the blinkers out of the water, time to get serious. Beside the scalding and the plucking that replaced the skinning process, gutting poultry resulted really similar to his previous experience with the squirrel, except he had also to remove the crop. The neck and the oil gland. Once they finished, Lith's eyes enjoyed the results, noticing that aside from the blinker's skin being a little more porous compared to a chicken's, it was just a roast away from what he would purchase back on Earth. How do I cook it? Still hungry even after 2 squirrels? Yes, very. The previous meal was just an appetizer, he was far from satisfied. Please, let's use the outdoor campfire. I need to get used to not using a fireplace. Celia slammed her hand on her forehead. Right, I almost forgot about your family issues. After instructing him how to choose the right spot for a campfire, she showed him how to improvise a kebab with wood sticks. The final lesson was about how high to set the kebab to avoid burning the food and how to recognize when it was ready to be eaten. After memorizing everything, Lith imbued his eyes with fire magic, activating the fire vision spell, that granted him an improved version of thermal goggles. He then started to weave together fire and wind magic, keeping the heat stable with no hot or cold spots, while using air currents to cook every nook and cranny of the meat evenly. Such fine control required for him to move both his hands and feet, to watch his meal from different angles and adjusting the mana flow. His movements were akin to a combination of martial arts katas. Celia was about to mock him about how performing a victory dance for a single blinker was a little extreme, when the delicious smell reached her nose. The blinker was getting roasted with a speed visible to the naked eye, the skin turning into a crispy crust, releasing the fat that was masterfully spreaded evenly. The smell was so good that her stomach started grumbling, despite she had consumed her breakfast less than 2 hours ago. Lith lifted the skewer with spirit magic, and after lowering the temperature to avoid burning himself while eating, he started wolfing down the meat, ripping it apart with his bare hands. First the drumsticks, then the breast, and lastly the wings. It lacked salt, and the meat wasn't as tender as a roasted chicken since they had not let the meat undergo any maturation. Nonetheless, it was the best meal Lith had ever had. I can't believe it, I cannot feel the hunger anymore. Lith fell to his knees from the happiness, his eyes wet on the verge of shedding tears. But that moment passed quickly. I need more, I can't allow the hunger to cripple me again. Lith looked at the sun, there were still a couple of hours before noon, he had still time for more hunting. Master Celia, I need a favor. I need a place to hide my own game, the one I am not willing to share. Just call me Celia, hunters do not waste time with honorifics, we are practical people. She waved her hand, dismissing the need for a title. As for your request, I don't make favors, only deals. What about this? From tomorrow onwards you will come here every day and clean my house, and maybe from time to time cook something for me with that silly dance of yours. In exchange, I will keep your personal meat safe and sound, and whenever you cook for me, we will share the meal evenly. Deal. Celia offered him her hand. It was still a rip-off, but it was his only option. Deal. I have only one rule. I don't do laundry. In the next days Lith's house resounded with much more laughter and joy than usual. Him bringing game home had raised some questions, but nothing he couldn't explain easily. The food helped everyone to relax and let go of the stress of the past. Even Lith and Orpal started to smooth over their relationship, limiting the glares and insults to a couple every day. But more importantly, Lith could finally start practicing martial arts again. His routine was very simple: hunting in the morning, magical training in the afternoon, martial arts at night. Thanks to the invigoration breathing technique, Lith was now able to stay up for almost a week before being forced to rest. He would sneak out of the house as soon as his life vision spell confirmed that everyone was asleep. Once outside, he would create mud dummies with earth magic to both practice martial techniques and temper his body. His first priority was the footwork. Maybe it was because he was only 4 years old, or maybe it was the lack of activity due to the previous constant hunger, but his body was embarrassingly clumsy and lacked coordination. Whenever someone threw anything at him, even a chestnut from a meter away, he would either miss it entirely or dunk it on the floor. Lith knew that despite his spellcasting was very quick, especially spirit magic, it was not instant. He could not afford to become a sitting duck as soon as someone closed in too much. Learning magic was powerful, but not omnipotent. What good could possibly do to him being able to topple mountains only to get killed by a random thug that managed to snuck up on him? Even back on Earth, Lith had always thought that considering mind and body as separate entities was dumb. Exercise had always allowed him to relieve his stress and relax his mind. Exactly like studying always allowed him to perform at his best, be it at work or martial arts. Brute strength was just violence, pure intellect just ideas with no substance. Only when mind and body were trained together the body could perform as the mind required. About a week after Lith had begun training, something happened. He was alone at night, practicing footwork by circling around the dummies, when he felt that something was wrong. Pain burst from his mana core and quickly spreaded to his whole body, accompanied by a head-spinning nausea like he had never experienced before. "What's happening to me?" he screamed inwardly. "This can't be a bottleneck, the last one resolved just yesterday, and no bottleneck ever felt like this." Soon he started gasping for air, incapable to stand up anymore and writhing in pain. "I can't die. I don't want to die again, not after enduring so much. I refuse to become some slave in a distant galaxy or an old man waiting for death. I had enough. I refuse to die." He used all his willpower to convert every iota of his mana into light magic, fighting off the affliction that was tormenting him, but to no avail. The pain got worse and worse, his power incapable of keeping up. When he surrendered, the burning sensation was finally free to rise all the way up to his mouth. Then he started puking lumps of a black, sticky substance that looked like tar but smelled like something had died and rotted for weeks under the summer heat. They were the size of a nut, but the strain he felt was akin to have barfed two elephants walking side by side. The stench was so bad that even in his incapacitated state he found the strength to summon some dark magic to destroy them without leaving traces. Lith spent the next minute spitting, drinking, even eating grass to get rid of that revolting taste in his mouth. When everything returned normal, Lith was too exhausted to practice, so he had to use invigoration to return his body to peak condition. As soon as Lith started executing the breathing technique, he discovered that he was now able to sense his mana core with much greater clarity. While absorbing the world energy with invigoration, he could feel and manipulate the mana flowing through his blood vessels and his organs to the point of visualize even the residual magic in his hair. Despite his eyes being closed shut, Lith could see inside his body as he was observing a state-of-the-art full-body scan 3D. Still dizzy, he tried performing the footwork exercise again. Lith's movements were still far from perfect, but he no longer felt like having two left feet. It's an amazing improvement considering that until a minute ago my goal was stop tripping on my own feet. I wonder. Lith stretched forward, his right hand opened, applying spirit magic to the head of the dummies. The best I could do before, with so many targets at once, was to squeeze them a little. And now. He clenched his fist, faster and harder than ever before. The dummies' heads popped like balloons.